Well, this is definitely one very expensive magic trick that the American people are still paying for. Poof, it's gone! As we start another endeavor that we're heavily invested in with not just our national security, but our money. That is losing its purchasing power. What in the world is going on here? As, of course, there's going to be some geopolitical ramifications for the United States involvement with what is happening right now with Israel and Iran. And specifically, I wanted to do a video where we focus a little bit on Pakistan, China, Russia, and the very kind of wild situation that's unfolding right now for the Ukrainians. That's not the best of situations for them, as, there's a lot of different updates specifically regarding Iran and Israel, but I wanted to cover what is happening elsewards in the world right now that I think is important to have an honest, earnest conversation about. And if you appreciate these type of conversations, subscribe, click the notification button, as Donald Trump had some very interesting statements to the media a few moments ago where he described how he is talking to Bibi every day and he is telling him to, quote, keep going. He also described a very interesting conversation that he is having right now with Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, who volunteered to intervene to negotiate a peace deal between Israel and Iran. Putin has close ties to both countries, and if there would be anyone that could potentially unwind this, it might potentially be him, even though he still has an ongoing conflict, which Donald Trump brought up.
Russia, Ukraine is so stupid. Would have never happened if I was president. You guys agree with that, right? Would have never happened if I was president.
Yeah, but the other one did.
Putin would have never done it. And I spoke to him yesterday, and I said, he actually offered to help mediate. I said, do me a favor. Mediate your own. Let's mediate Russia first, okay? I said, Vladimir, let's mediate Russia first. You can worry about this later.
All of this, as let's be honest with ourselves here, the conflict inside of Iran has definitely put the Russians in a very kind of weird predicament. In one way, it helps them. In another way, it gets rid of one of their closest allies, as there's a lot that is very complicated in the grand chessboard and the stakes at play here, while, of course, other pundits like Dave Rubin are saying, look what Israel's doing. It's not Israel has done by themselves. Look, they're basically incapacitated. The Israelis are not acting by themselves here. The world knows that. China knows that. Russia knows that. Pakistan knows that. The United States is giving the weapons, putting the munitions in them, giving them the intelligence, and saying, "Okay, go." And then they're targeting and hitting everything, and then they're coming back, running behind the United States, and the United States is then defending them afterwards. I'm sorry, but with billions of dollars that we have donated and given to them through our tax dollars, they're not doing this by themselves, okay? But Dave Rubin has an issue here. Can someone explain to me why Tucker and Alex Jones keep saying this will lead to thermonuclear World War III? I get it. There's some sensationalistic actors in here. But the fact that we are closer to this, it doesn't mean it's going to be a fact, doesn't mean it's going to happen. The fact that we are closer towards a full-on bigger conflict, because what we're seeing in Iran is a proxy war. It's a proxy war that you're going to see other countries get involved in, that other countries are already involved in. There's some things specifically regarding the Iranian missile defense systems that keep getting replenished in very strange ways. Who's responsible for all of that? How, are they more capable than we thought they were, or are they getting assistance and help? Well, we're going to get those answers here in a little bit here. Now, is it thermonuclear World War III? Listen, I think it's fair to say that the threat assessment levels have been raised here. And the fact that they already have been when they were very high before is not a good thing. And I get it. Some people are just scared of the sensationalism. I think the biggest sensational actors are telling us that New York's going to get hit by Iran, which is ridiculous. It's idiotic. It's a conversation that is directly pointed at fear. That's the fear mongering, okay? us saying, hey, relations geopolitically are kind of deteriorating because of these ongoing fights and global conflicts that we could have avoided, because of these quote regime change efforts that are happening here that we're aiding and abetting and supporting fully with our tax dollars. That right there is the real conversations. As MTG says, the neocon warmongers are all about fighting a proxy war with Russia in Ukraine, fighting Iran for Israel, and protecting Taiwan from China. But they could care less about the cartels committing crimes against and murder against Americans every single day. That's a good one. In response to Dave Rubin's type of question here, which I think is nonsensical, and he doesn't think about the long-term consequences here, we have the Palantir CEO boss of a CIA predictive programming artificial intelligence system coming out and saying, quote, the U.S. will very likely fight a three-front war against Russia, China, and Iran. Now, why did he say that? As, of course, the Pentagon has already been doing war games, drilling for this many years beforehand. And we have been talking about this for many years on end. This is where we are shaping up to. This is where we are going to. This is the type of situation that I have been screaming about and saying we need to prevent as much as possible. I am arguing that the Iran conflict is bringing us closer towards a full-on kinetic conflict between China and Russia that are seeing the United States more of an existential threat against them. I'll tell you why in a little bit. Before we do that, check out thebestpoliticalshorts.com because we have thebestpoliticalshorts.com. Yesterday, we had massive meat rocket. It said 2024 on it. Now it says 2028, as Sean Strickland talked about how he is now going to be voting for the Democrats in response to these latest actions from Donald Trump here. We have a lot of very funny shirts, and you know what? You might as well laugh now because you could either cry or laugh. Yesterday, I was wearing this one, also a very good one. Today, I am wearing one that also, there's a lot of shirts that I get a lot of high fives from, a lot of like ladies coming up to me, hi, we like the shirt. This one's one of those. It has RFK Jr. looking disappointed. I have a picture of him, by the way, in the kitchen cupboard and in my refrigerator. You open up the refrigerator door, and it's a picture of RFK looking at you, all disappointed. If you want to find that T-shirt and you want to wear it, you type in RFK into the search bar here on thebestpoliticalshorts.com, and bada bing, bada boom, it pops right up. And then you're able to get it just for $31. Very cheap, especially with how Biden inflation has been just screwing everyone over. And thebestpoliticalshorts.com is the website. Click the link down in the description below and get a piece of important merchandise that allows you to be a part of the conversation here. I think this one is more important than ever, especially with the latest current events unfolding here. It's a snapback hat that just reads, where's the Epstein list? Oh, that's so interesting that conversation just went away. We're not talking about that anymore. That seemed to dominate the headlines recently. Now no one wants to talk about that for some strange reason. No one's talking about that. How convenient. A little bit too convenient. Look at this one, $26. A shirt that you can get on thebestpoliticalshorts.com. Get it, support our efforts, and speak your truth all through thebestpoliticalshorts.com. Now, let's go into this kind of conversation here that's unfolding, which I think is important here. Because, listen, I don't think Alex Karp is wrong here, okay? This is the guy with predictive AI programming with the CIA, okay? I think if anyone is able to predict and see the future, it's this guy. And we have seen other kind of technocrats that have been working on AI development. Eric Schmidt talk about how we got to stop building tanks and start building drones. Now, this is significant because I would argue that right now we are at a manufacturing disadvantage compared to what Iran, Russia, and China can produce, can do, and how they are changing their type of military-industrial complexes and their war machines towards a new kind of modern form of warfare, which is ever so robotic and dangerous and dystopian. Now, the United States has been doing war games, and in many of these war games, the United States loses to a war with Russia, China, and Iran, by the way. Why? Well, the Chinese could build a whole bunch of boats really quickly. Russia has a whole bunch of people. Now, is that the likely scenario, the likely case here? Listen, I hope not. But from all type of analytical type of thinking, the Thucydides trap that's lining up here, the kind of heated tensions between Russia, between China, Pakistan, which is a nuclear armed nation, there's something to, I think, worry about and be concerned about, since we are propelling this type of what many people believe inevitable future forward. I'm saying let's try to prevent that from happening. Let's not let's not try to rush towards this kind of foregone conclusion that a lot of people believe is just a matter of time until we kind of get in there. Now, there's a lot of information, a lot of scuttlebutt that hasn't been confirmed. There's a lot of information going back and forth right now, specifically with other countries' involvements. Pakistan allegedly informing the United States, Iran, and Israel that if Iran gets nuked, that they will respond with a nuke against Israel. This is allegedly what the conversations are taking place behind the scenes. First, initially, Israel and the United States said, Iran, if you're going to use any of our kind of advanced ballistic missile systems, we are going to nuke you. Pakistan allegedly got involved here. Did they actually say this officially? No. There is no official record. There's just the Iranian government officials saying this. Does that make it true? Is it a bluff? Who knows what's going on here? As the Iranian air defense missile systems has been replenished within a day, according to some reports, and a lot of people believe it is Pakistan that is helping them replenish this. Some people believe that it also is Russia, as Russia has long, extensive military and economic ties to Iran. So does China. But I think the country that sees this kind of war as a bigger threat against them is, of course, Pakistan. Pakistan is predominantly an Islamic nation. Pakistan has nukes. Bibi Netanyahu has talked about, after we're done with Iran, we're going after Pakistan. And it wouldn't surprise me if Pakistan has the most to lose here from this conflict. So does Russia, so does China. Russia gets a lot of their drones from Iran, as Iran probably will be cutting off Russia. There's also a lot of fake news. There was a report going around that a lot of the pro-war, America Last, right-wing MAGA people, MAGA women, were sharing, saying, yes, Russia doesn't support Iran. Allegedly from Bloomberg, that reporting has been non-existent, and there are no reports of Russia withdrawing their support from Iran. Now, all of this is happening as Donald Trump moved a lot of very significant military hardware away from Ukraine. 20,000 missiles, anti-drone systems, missile defense systems, all of that is gone, as now the Russians are targeting the last remaining missile defense systems for the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians also dealing with a huge population problem, and they have now started to permit dual citizenship in order to combat their, quote, demographic issue, since they keep sending more and more men to the front lines. Men on the front lines that, of course, never make it back because of this technocratic, robotic form of warfare. Another bad sign for the Ukrainians is that Zelensky showed up to the G7, and he never got to meet with Donald Trump, as Donald Trump is cutting the vast majority of the aid and support and assistance from the Ukrainians that they used to get, because they're delivering it directly to the Israelis. Now, what's going to be the future for Ukraine as they keep getting bombed? So right now we are finding out that the U.S. Defense Secretary statement about transferring air defense systems from Ukraine to Israel, as the Russian military is seeing this as an opportunity to, of course, take advantage of this particular situation and make their attacks on Ukraine and make more advances. As we keep getting stories and stories of the Russians taking away more and more key pieces of territory inside of Ukraine. Now, there are Russian government spokes members that are coming out and saying, what's going on here? What did Iran do wrong? As, of course, Russia is against taking out one of their close allies and one of their biggest suppliers of drones, naturally, because there's a partnership between the two that now gets a little bit more complicated with the United States giving the green light to Israel, and then the weapons and then the munitions to, of course, bomb and attack them.
You know, let me ask you, what has Iran done wrong?
This is Russian state media, by the way. So this is a Russian state government television coming out and kind of publicly declaring, hey, what did Iran do wrong here?
What is it being bombed for? There has to be a very specific answer to this question, a very specific one, obviously, because when you park a car the wrong way in Manhattan, say, a cop turns out, issues you a fine, produces photos, and when you appear in court, you are shown what you did wrong, and you can appeal that. Right now, Iran every day suffers bomb strikes in response to them. So what is it being bombed for? If we're talking about human rights, there are experts there who are staying there who say they haven't seen violations there. Israel say they don't like the regime in Iran, the political regime. Can I ask you a question? Were there different regimes? There were different regimes in Iran, and people didn't like them as well. But the most important, if we're talking about civilized countries and about democracy and international relationships, whether you like a regime or you don't, if it doesn't attack you, and if it doesn't do or say anything that, from the point of view of international legislation, create a direct threat to people or a state, you have no right to change that regime.
This as there's serious considerations and talks from the United States about taking out the Ayatollah from Donald Trump, who warned about it. As now we're getting kind of official confirmation that Russia is warning the United States not to help the Israeli military against Iran. Well, that's too late. The United States is already helping out the Israelis in the defensive and offensive matters. Now, they might take an even more offensive matter, as the deputy foreign minister of Russia stated that such aid could radically destabilize the entire situation in the Middle East, as the head of the Russian foreign intelligence described the situation as, quote, critical. This is why Vladimir Putin tried to negotiate here, and of course they never got that ability to do that. Now, Donald Trump's administration did disband a group focused on pressuring Russia, according to some sources, as they ended a working group that was specifically trying to push the Kremlin into a tougher situation. Now, this is where it gets complicated for Russia, okay? Because Russia understands that we're losing our ally, but at the same time, we're able to take Ukraine. That's the kind of gambit. That's the deal that's being made underneath the table there. Now, China also is a huge economic partner with Iran. And listen, Iran has been buying and selling a whole bunch of goods between China and themselves. Now, almost all of the Iranian oil exports went to China. This is why China wasn't willing to make a deal with the United States, saying, look, you could lift sanctions and we could sell oil on the world markets, but we don't have to do that. We could just sell it to China. China's buying it up. We don't need to sell it to you. We could sell it to China. China now, that, by the way, has huge energy power demands. You need huge power demands for the AI of the future. China is doubling down also on a lot of solar panels, and their output from solar panels is actually kind of impressive, to be quite honest with you. Their shipbuilding capabilities are sort of impressive too, but China still gets a lot of their energy from Iran. They won't, especially if the whole area is destabilized. There's a lot of reports going on right now of Russia, of China actively arming Iran. Now, we know that happened previously. Is that happening now? There's a lot of reports. Some of them are fake. I have not been able to verify this. Because let's be honest with ourselves, if they were doing this, they're probably doing this in secret. And they probably are. Do we have any official confirmation, government statements? No. Do we have the receipts? No. We do not. We do not. Let's just be honest with ourselves. But the fact that this is probably happening is probably true. And it is very significant here, as we have to understand here. China, as Mike Benz reports, signed a $400 billion deal with Iran for its oil and natural gas. China has a huge financial investment in Iran, And they, of course, feel compelled to protect the Iranian side here in expense for Israeli, quote, security, as Israeli diplomats in China have assumed that years of providing China with advanced defense technology would change China's stance on Israel. That was a serious miscalculation, as of course the United States gave some advanced tech to Israel. Israel sold it to China, by the way. A lot of people forget that. That's interesting. As of course China has evacuated some of its citizens from Israel and Iran. And also a very complicated situation because on one hand, they have Israel giving them all the secret U.S. tech. But on the other hand, they have a huge investment in Iran. And that investment is, of course, important. But also, China's looking at Taiwan right now, being like, smacking their lips, clasping their hands here, like, the Taiwan looks good right about now. And that's why Dave Rubin is absurd for even asking the question to why the situation is as dangerous as it is right now, because it is. And we have to understand here that this situation is very complicated and it's only going to get that much worse. Thank you for everyone for getting a shirt on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Thank you for being a real one. Stay tuned for more, all here exclusively on youtube.com/wearechange.